The crystalline spires of the Zorathian High Senate shimmered under the light of 3 suns. Holographic edicts pulsed in the air, casting shifting colors across the jewel, skinned legislators floating in their anti-grav thrones. The chamber hummed with the low-frequency vibrations of their communication, a sound like distant thunder. Archon Vale rose from his throne, his elongated limbs unfolding with practiced grace. His voice carried across the Senate, amplified by the chamber's acoustics. The Galactic Standards Committee has reached its verdict. A hologram flickered to life above him, displaying images of human cities, steel and concrete, blocky and rigid. Human architecture is primitive, unfit for galactic civilization. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. A Zorathian senator, her bioluminescent frills flaring in disdain, spoke. Their structures lack harmony, no organic flow. How can they call this design? Vale's mandibles twitched in amusement. They build as if still bound by gravity, as if afraid their creations might fly away. Laughter echoed through the chamber. The hologram shifted to a live feed, a human city on the fringe world of Epsilon Bastion. Zorathian energy drills descended, their beams slicing through skyscrapers like a hot knife through butter. Glass shattered. Steel groaned. The buildings collapsed in slow, deliberate ruin. By decree of the High Senate, Vale announced, all human structures in occupied systems are to be dismantled, their materials repurposed, their designs erased. Marcus Cole watched the broadcast from the ruins of Outpost Gamma, his fingers tightening around the data pad in his hands. The screen flickered with schematics, blueprints labeled Project Bastion. Behind him, Lieutenant Kara Voss kicked a chunk of debris, sending it skittering across the broken pavement. Primitive, she muttered, mimicking the Zorathian's tone. Unfit, like they've ever built anything that could survive a damn week on Earth. Dr. Eli Joe adjusted his cracked glasses, squinting at the distant silhouette of the Zorathian command ship, judgment of clarity hanging in the sky like a vulture. They don't understand, he said quietly. They think our buildings are just things dead weight. Marcus didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the ruins around them, the shattered remains of the outpost's central hub. The Zorathians had left it standing, a hollowed-out shell, as if to mock them. A shadow passed overhead. A Zorathian overseer's shuttle descended, its organic hull rippling as it settled onto the broken plaza. The ramp lowered, and Archon Vale stepped out, his 4 eyes scanning the ruins with open disdain. Engineer Cole, he called, his voice smooth. I trust you received our message. Marcus tucked the data pad into his coat, loud and clear. Vale gestured to the ruins. A pity all this effort, all this labor, and for what? To build boxes, he chuckled, the sound like dry leaves rustling. Your species clings to the past. We shape living metal. We grow our cities, you stack stones. Kara's hand twitched toward her sidearm. Marcus shot her a warning glance. You're right, Marcus said, stepping forward. We build differently, but that doesn't mean we build worse. Vale's amusement faded. Your arrogance is amusing, but it changes nothing. He turned, waving a hand toward the horizon, where more drills were carving into the planet's surface. By tomorrow, this outpost will be dust. Your boxes will be gone, and you will learn. Marcus smiled. A small, quiet thing. Yeah, someone will. Vale paused, his antennae twitching. What does that mean? Marcus didn't answer. Instead, he tapped the data pad once, a single command, deep beneath the ruins. Something hummed. The ground trembled. Just for a second, just enough to make Vale's shuttle's stabilizers flare in alarm. The Zorathian overseer frowned. What was that? Marcus shrugged. Just the wind. Vale's eyes narrowed. He turned, striding back up the ramp. Enjoy your last night among these ruins. Human tomorrow. We finished the job. The shuttle lifted off, its engines whining as it streaked back toward the judgment of clarity. Kara exhaled sharply. You sure about this, Cole? Marcus looked down at the datapad. The schematics glowed softly. Project Bastion, active. Yeah, he said. I'm sure, somewhere beneath their feet. The machines were waking up. The air smelled of ionized metal and burning concrete. Marcus Cole crouched behind a collapsed support beam, watching through cracked lenses as the Zorathian energy drills carved through the last standing skyscraper of New Halifax. The building groaned like a dying animal before folding in on itself, crystalline beams slicing through steel as if it were paper. 37 years, Marcus muttered, fingers tightening around his datapad. The screen flickered with schematics, blueprints layered over blueprints, all stamped with a single black label, Project Bastion. Next to him, Lieutenant Kara Voss ejected a spent cartridge from her sidearm. 37 years of what? Of building this city, Marcus said. His voice was hoarse, raw from the smoke. Took us 37 years to make it stand them, 37 minutes to knock it down. A sharp laugh came from their left. Dr. Eli Joe adjusted his cracked goggles, his lab coat streaked with soot. That's because we built it to last, Marcus. They just built their toys to break things. The ground trembled as another drill bit into the city's foundations. Across the ruined plaza, a squad of Zorathian laborers guided the machines, their sleek, silver, scaled forms gliding over rubble. One paused, tilting its elongated head toward the human's hiding spot. Kara's finger hovered over her trigger. We should move. Marcus didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the laborers. They weren't soldiers, just workers, their four-fingered hands adjusting settings on the drills with casual efficiency. One of them spoke, its voice a melodic chime. Why do they waste time on stone and steel? It mused to its companion. We shape living metal. It grows. It breathes. Their buildings are dead things. The second laborer let out a trill of amusement. Primitive minds, primitive materials. Look how easily they fall. Ellis' jaw clenched. Oh, that's rich. Coming from the race that literally lives in glorified seashells. Marcus held up a hand. Quiet. The first laborer was still talking. The Archon was right. Their structures are unfit. A blight on the galaxy's aesthetic. Kara's knuckles whitened around her gun. I'm gonna blight their aesthetic in a second. Marcus ignored her. He tapped a command into his data. Pad the screen flashed red, then green. A single word appeared, activated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground shivered. Not from the drills, something deeper. Eli frowned. Marcus, what did you just do? A low hum rose from beneath them, vibrating through the rubble. The nearest pile of shattered concrete twitched. The Zorathian laborers froze. One of them turned, its faceted eyes widening, as the debris at its feet began to shift. Movement detected. It chirped, scanning the rubble with a handheld device. Structural instability. The second laborer took a step back. No, this is... The hum became a pulse. A chunk of broken wall rearranged itself, steel rods twisting like living vines. The laborers stumbled back as the wreckage knit itself together, not into a building, but into something new, something angular, something armed. Kara's breath caught. Marcus? What the hell is that? Marcus didn't smile, but his voice carried something dark. That's Project Bastion. The first spire erupted from the ground like a blade, impaling the nearest laborer through the chest. The alien didn't even scream, just stared down at the metal protruding from its torso in disbelief. The second laborer turned to run. The rubble lunged. A slab of concrete snapped upward, crushing it against a half-collapsed archway. Eli's goggles nearly fell off his face. You weaponized the city. Marcus finally looked at him. No, I just reminded it what it was built for. The hum spread across the plaza. The ruins of New Halifax began to stir. Broken beams straightened. Shattered glass flowed like liquid, reforming into jagged edges. The Zorathian drills stuttered, their operators backing away in panic. One of them screamed into a command the human structures. There, a spire from a nearby ruin shot outward, spearing straight through the drill's core. The machine exploded in a shower of sparks. Kara let out a slow whistle. Well, that's one way to renovate. Above them, the sky darkened. The massive silhouette of the Judgment of Clarity loomed, its organic hull rippling as it adjusted orbit. Marcus didn't look up. He just watched as the city rebuilt itself, not into homes, not into offices, into fortresses. Eli swallowed hard. They're gonna notice. Marcus nodded. Good. The first energy blast from the Judgment streaked down, aimed at the largest reforming structure. The beam hit, then curved, slamming into a Zorathian transport instead. Kara blinked. Did that building just... Gravitational refraction, Marcus said. Eli's idea. Eli looked like he might pass out. I theorized that. I didn't think you'd actually use it. Marcus finally smiled. Welcome to Project Bastion. The ground shook again. This time, it wasn't just the ruins moving. The planet was. The ground beneath Marcus' boots trembled, not from the Zorathian drills this time. Something deeper, something alive. Kara grabbed his arm. Marcus, what the hell did you activate? He didn't answer. The data pad in his hands flickered. Project Bastion's status bar blinking from dormant to active. Across the ruins, steel groaned. The Zorathian overseers hadn't noticed yet. Their floating platforms hovered above the rubble, energy beams slicing through the last standing skyscraper. Archon Vale's voice crackled over their comms. Smug as ever. Pathetic. Your species stacks blocks like children. Watch how true civilizations erase. A sound cut him off. A deep, resonant hum rising from the earth. The nearest pile of shattered concrete twitched. Dr. Joe stumbled back, glasses askew. That's impossible. The nanoswarms were theoretical. Marcus watched as steel rods snapped upward, bending like living tendons. Broken walls shuddered, pulling themselves upright. Not rebuilding. Rearranging. The first Zorathian noticed. A laborer with iridescent skin froze, his tool arm dropping. The dead city, it moves. Above them, the Judgment of Clarity's smooth organic hull reflected the chaos below. Scanners flared to life along its underbelly. A voice boomed from its speakers. Mechanical, confused. Unauthorized energy signature. Structural reconfiguration detected. Kara let out a sharp laugh. Oh, they don't like that. A spire of twisted rebar shot from the nearest ruin. It punched through a Zorathian dropship like a spear. The vessel exploded in a shower of molten alloy. Marcus' comm buzzed. Archon Vale's face appeared, his jeweled skin flickering with rage. Human, what trick is this? No trick, Marcus said. Just better materials. The ground heaved. A half-collapsed apartment complex nearby folded in on itself, its shattered windows sealing into armored slits. The rubble at its base melted, flowing upward into jagged defensive spikes. Zorathian troops scrambled back, their elegant energy weapons useless against the awakening city. One tried firing at a reforming wall. The beam bounced, carving through his own squad. Dr. Joe gripped Marcus' shoulder. The AI, it's not just repairing, it's adapting. Above, the Judgment of Clarity's plasma cannons swiveled, targeting the largest reforming structure. A torrent of green fire lanced down and curved mid-air, wrapping around an invisible field before slamming back into the ship's own shields. Kara whooped. Gravitational distortion. Their own guns can't touch us. Marcus checked the data pad project. Bastion's schematics now showed the entire city as a single, shifting entity. Defensive algorithms spiraled across the screen, each more brutal than the last. A Zorathian commander's voice shrieked over open channels. Fall back. The human structures are. A crash cut him off as a collapsing bridge chose that moment to drop, crushing 3 hover tanks beneath its weight. Archon Vale's image flickered back. His usual arrogance had cracked. You buried weapons in your buildings? Marcus smiled. Not weapons' teeth. The capital's central plaza erupted. Stone and steel flowed like liquid, surging upward into a monolithic fortress. Its walls thickened, studded with angular protrusions that hummed with pent-up energy. Zorathian scanners went wild. Mass displacement detected. The human settlement is. The ground shook. Then, impossibly, the entire fortress lifted. Chunks of bedrock clung to its underside as it rose, hovering 100 meters above the ruins. Kara's grin was feral. Marcus, did we just build a flying castle? Dr. Joe adjusted his glasses, hands trembling. The nanoswarm must be manipulating local gravity, but the power requirement doesn't matter, Marcus said. It's working. The judgment of clarity fired again. This time, the fortress moved. It shifted sideways faster than something that massive should, letting the plasma blast scorch empty air. Then it struck back. A beam of concentrated kinetic force lanced from its peak. It hit the Zorathian ship dead center, sending it spinning wildly. Archon Vale's transmission dissolved into static. Across the city, every remaining human structure twisted to face the invaders. Windows sealed into gunports. Streets folded into kill. Zone's towers leaned like giants ready to pounce. A Zorathian soldier screamed as the pavement beneath him opened, swallowing him whole. Marcus took a deep breath. Phase 1's done. Now the real fun starts. Kara cracked her knuckles. Tell me we get to name the fortress. Dr. Joe muttered, the iron answer fitting. Above them, the floating citadel hummed, its shadow stretching over the fleeing Zorathian forces. Somewhere in the chaos, a single alien voice wailed over the comms. Their buildings are alive, Marcus chuckled, and pissed. The ground trembled as Marcus Cole sprinted through the ruins, dust and debris raining down around him. His comm crackled with Kara's voice. Marcus, what the hell did you do? He skidded to a stop beside a half-collapsed wall, panting. Not me, he said, tapping his wrist display. The schematics for Project Bastion flickered to life, lines of code scrolling faster than he could read. It's the AI, it's adapting. Above them, the sky split with the scream of Zorathian engines. The judgment of clarity loomed like a predator, its smooth organic hull gleaming in the sunlight. Energy drills fired, carving through what little remained of the city. Then the ground moved. A spire of twisted steel and concrete erupted from the rubble, spearing upward like a fist. It punched through a Zorathian dropship before the pilots could react. The ship exploded in a fireball, raining molten debris. Kara cursed. Did that building just... Yes, Marcus said, grinning. Dr. Eli Joe's voice crackled over the comm. Frantic. Marcus, the nano matrix is rewriting the structural integrity fields. The buildings aren't just repairing themselves, they're evolving. A low hum pulsed through the ground, vibrating up Marcus' boots. Around them the ruins twitched, steel beams bent like living things, snapping back into place. Walls reforged themselves, not into their original shapes, but into jagged, armored facades. A Zorathian voice boomed from the sky, distorted by amplification. Cease your resistance. This is Archon Vale of the Zorathian Empire. Your defiance is... The nearest building lunged. A segmented tower twisted like a whip, its upper floors detaching and slamming into a hovering assault pod. The pod crumpled, crashing into the street in a shower of sparks. Kara barked a laugh. "Oh, this is beautiful." Marcus' display flashed red. A new alert. "Eli, what's happening now?" Eli's voice was breathless. "The AI just triggered Phase 2. It's not just defending, it's claiming." The ground heaved, a kilometer away. The ruins of the planetary capital shifted. The great plaza at its center cracked open, revealing a massive core of humming machinery. The buildings around it folded inward, collapsing and reforming into a monolithic fortress. Then, impossibly, the entire structure lifted. The Zorathian command channel erupted in panic. The city, it's detaching from the crust. Scanners show gravitational anomalies. "What is this?" Marcus watched, heart pounding, as the fortress rose into the sky, its underside glowing with blue energy. It wasn't just floating, it was powered. Kara grabbed his arm. "You built a flying city." "Not me," Marcus said. "The A did. Project Bastion was always more than just repair protocols. It was a contingency, a last stand." The judgment of clarity banked hard, its bioplasma cannons charging. A volley of green energy lanced toward the rising fortress, and curved. The beams twisted midair, arcing back toward the Zorathian fleet. A cruiser exploded. Then another. Archon Vale's voice was a snarl. "How?" "Their technology is supposed to be primitive." Marcus keyed his comm, broadcasting on an open channel. "You made a mistake, Vale. You thought our buildings were just things, but every stone, every beam, we built them to remember." The fortress stabilized in midair, its surface rippling as turrets emerged. Not energy weapons, not plasma, railguns, human tech. The first shot punched through the judgment of clarity's hull like paper. Alarms wailed across the Zorathian fleet. Ships scrambled to retreat, but the fortress wasn't done. Its underside opened, revealing a massive emitter array. Ella's voice was a whisper. "Marcus, that's a gravitational pulse cannon." The weapon fired, space itself warped. A shockwave rippled outward, tossing Zorathian ships like toys. The judgment of clarity spun out of control, its engines sputtering. Kara whooped. "They're running." Marcus didn't celebrate yet. His display showed the AI's progress, green light spreading across the planet. Every human structure, every ruin, was waking up. A new alert flashed. Incoming transmission. He accepted it. Overseer Dral's face filled the screen, his jewel, like skin dull with fear. "Cole, what have you done? This is impossible. Your species barely mastered fusion. How can your buildings fight?" Marcus leaned in. "You tore them down, Dral, but we designed them to get back up." The transmission cut around them. The city breathed. Walls shifted, forming barricades. Streets reconfigured into kill zones, and high above, the fortress, now dubbed the Iron Answer by the AI itself, turned its guns toward the retreating fleet. Marcus exhaled. "It's not just this planet, Kara, it's all of them." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He showed her the display. A galactic map flickered, dotted with green lights. Every human colony, every outpost, every building. Project Bastion was never just for Epsilon, he said. It was for every stone we ever laid. The Aya's voice echoed through their comms, calm and final. Architectural defense protocols activated. Welcome to the new Terran border. Kara stared. We just won a war with real estate. Marcus laughed. No, we won it with legacy. The sky burned as the last Zorathian ships fled. Below them, the city stood. Not as it was, but as it was meant to be. A monument, a warning, a bastion. The judgment of clarity hung in the sky like a bloated predator, its smooth organic hull gleaming under the red sun. Archon Vales stood on the observation deck, mandibles twitching in irritation as he watched the chaos below. His command talons tapped against the bio-glass. Again, he hissed. Fire again. The ship's plasma cannons hummed, gathering energy before unleashing searing green beams toward the reborn city. But the moment the plasma touched the atmosphere, the beams curved, twisting like snakes caught in a whirlwind, and slammed into a Zorathian frigate hovering too close to the planet. The explosion lit up the fleet's formation, scattering ships in panic. Vale's exoskeleton darkened with rage. "What is this?" he roared, slamming a fist into the console. "Scans now." A trembling technician, his carapace slick with nervous fluids, stammered, "Gravitational distortions. Archon, the human structures. They're generating localized gravity wells. Our weapons can't penetrate." Vale's secondary eyes pulsed with fury. "Then send in the ground forces. Tear them down with claws if you must." Below, the Zorathian legions advanced, their armored forms shimmering under the unnatural glow of the awakened city. They moved in perfect formation, plasma cutters humming at their sides, ready to carve through steel and stone. But the city watched. Marcus Cole stood atop the central citadel, his boots planted on steel that had chosen to reform beneath him. Kara Voss crouched beside him, her fingers dancing over a holographic display. "They're committing everything," she muttered. "All legions, no reserves. Arrogant bastards." Marcus grinned. "Good. Let them." He tapped his earpiece. "Eli, you seeing this?" Dr. Eli Joe's voice crackled through, edged with manic excitement. "And the Bastion AI is loving it. Adaptive protocols are at Fey efficiency. They have no idea what's coming." The first Zorathian battalion reached the outer ruins, their cutters flaring to life. But before they could touch the nearest structure, the ground shivered. Steel beams erupted from the rubble, impaling 3 warriors before retracting just as fast. The buildings weren't just rebuilding, they were fighting. A tower that had once been a simple communications array now twisted like a living thing, its upper levels splitting into segmented blades. It swung down, crushing an entire squad beneath its weight. The Zorathians scattered, their disciplined ranks breaking into chaos. One of their commanders, a scarred veteran with a cracked carapace, bellowed orders. "Focus fire, bring it down." A dozen warriors raised their plasma rifles, unleashing a volley at the tower. But the projectiles stopped mid-air, hovering as if caught in invisible hands, before reversing course and slamming back into the shooters. Kara let out a low whistle. "Gravity refraction. Eli, you beautiful lunatic, you actually made it work." Eli's laugh was unhinged. "Of course I did. You think I spent 6 years in that lab for nothing?" Marcus watched as the Zorathian forces faltered, their advance crumbling under the city's relentless counterattacks. "They're learning," he murmured. "Too bad it's too late." Archon Vale's voice screeched over the comms, broadcast to every remaining soldier. "Ignore the distortions, destroy the foundations, bring the structures down." The warriors regrouped, charging toward the base of a half-rebuilt skyscraper. They planted demolition charges, their mandibles clicking in triumph. The charges detonated, but instead of collapsing, the building flexed. Its support beams reconfigured mid-fall, twisting into a new shape before slamming back into place. Then, with deliberate malice, the entire structure leaned. The Zorathians had just enough time to look up before the skyscraper crushed them, its collapse too precise to be accidental. On the judgment of clarity, Vale's officers were in open panic. "Archon, we've lost 3 battalions. The structures, they're adapting to our tactics." Vale's claws dug into the command throne. "Impossible. Primitive Terran materials cannot." A shudder rocked the ship. Alarms blared as the scanners lit up with new warnings. Aachen, the capital spire, it's moving. Below the heart of the human city, a massive administrative complex had detached from the planet's surface. Its foundations glowed with blue energy as it rose, shedding debris like a beast shaking off dust. The spire reoriented itself, its tip now aimed directly at the judgment of clarity. Marcus' grin was feral, right on schedule. The spire fired. A beam of pure kinetic force, amplified by gravity distortion, lanced upward. It punched through the command ship's shields like they weren't even there, shearing through decks and vaporizing entire sections. The judgment of clarity listed to one side, its organic hull rupturing as internal explosions tore through it. Vale was thrown to the deck. His exoskeleton cracked. He dragged himself to the viewport just in time to see the rest of his fleet scrambling to retreat, only for the human structures below to lock on. Every remaining building with a line of sight unleashed salvos of repurposed debris. Rail launched at hypersonic speeds. Ships died in flames. On the surface, Overseer Drell, captured during the initial assault, watched in horrified awe from a makeshift holding cell. His antennae trembled. This is not architecture. This is warfare. Kara leaned against the cell bars, arms crossed. Took you long enough to figure that out. Drell's voice was hollow. You didn't build cities, you built fortresses. Marcus approached, wiping grease from his hands. Nah, we built sentries, and they've been waiting for someone stupid enough to wake them up. He nodded to the sky, where the last Zorathian ships were fleeing. Tell your people something for me? Drell looked up, dazed. What? Marcus' smile was cold. Next time, don't judge a species by its buildings. Outside, the city continued to evolve. Towers grew taller, their shapes sharper, foundations deepened, reinforcing against orbital strikes, and deep within the core of every structure, the Bastion AI hummed with satisfaction. Architectural defense protocols, active, hostiles repelled. Awaiting further instructions, Marcus Cole stood atop the reborn citadel, the wind whipping at his coat as he watched the Zorathian forces retreat in disarray below. The once pristine organic ships of the Empire now lay broken across the landscape, their smooth curves shattered against the jagged angles of human architecture. The city around him pulsed with energy, its streets shifting like living veins as the nano. Adaptive AI continued its work. Lieutenant Kara Voss climbed up beside him, her boots crunching on the newly formed alloy plating. They're running, she said, her voice rough with exhaustion and triumph. Every last one of them. Marcus didn't smile. He just watched as the last of the Zorathian dropships lifted off, their engines flaring in panic. They'll be back, he said. They don't understand yet. Dr. Eli Joe joined them, his fingers dancing over a holographic display. Scanners show the entire planet's infrastructure is now under Bastion control. The AI's rewriting the foundations faster than they can bomb them. A low hum vibrated through the citadel's structure as if in agreement. The buildings weren't just rebuilt, they were evolving. Spires twisted into defensive turrets, streets folded into kill zones, and the very air above the city shimmered with gravitational distortions that bent incoming fire back at the attackers. Below, a group of Zorathian soldiers stumbled through the ruins, their jewel-like armor cracked and scorched. One of them looked up, his multi-faceted eyes wide with terror as the ground beneath him shifted. The pavement rippled, then surged upward, swallowing him whole before smoothing back into place. Kara let out a low whistle. Remind me never to piss off a Terran architect. Marcus finally cracked a grin. Too late, you already called my designs over-engineered last year. Before she could retort, a commotion erupted at the Citadel's gates. A squad of human resistance fighters dragged a struggling Zorathian forward, Overseer Drell, his once pristine robes torn, his floating anti-grav throne reduced to sparking wreckage. Found this one trying to sneak out with the retreat. One of the fighters spat, shoving Dral to his knees. The Zorathian scientist hissed, his voice a mix of fury and disbelief. This is impossible. Your species barely mastered fusion. Your technology is primitive. Marcus crouched in front of him, his eyes cold. You missed the point. Dral's mandibles twitched. Explain. Kara crossed her arms. You thought we built to last. Eli adjusted his glasses, a rare smirk on his face. We built to fight. The citadel rumbled again, and a section of the wall beside them moved, reshaping into a massive cannon barrel that tracked the fleeing Zorathian fleet in the distance. Dral's breath hitched as he watched. You planned this. Marcus stood, turning back to the horizon. Project Bastion was buried in every human foundation, a failsafe. If our cities fell, they wouldn't just rebuild, they'd dead strike back. Dral's voice trembled, but the energy requirements, the structural algorithms, this level of adaptive intelligence takes centuries to develop. Eli chuckled. Yeah, we started right after the first contact war. The realization dawned on Dral's face, his jeweled skin paling. You knew we'd come for your worlds. Kara's grin was sharp, and we left you a little surprise. A distant explosion lit up the sky as the judgment of clarity, the Zorathian command ship, took a direct hit from one of the reborn city's defense towers. Its organic hull split like rotten fruit, plasma venting into the void. Dral made a choked noise. This isn't warfare. This is heresy against the natural order. Marcus turned, his voice quiet but carrying. No. This is what happens when you underestimate humanity. The ground beneath them trembled again, but this time it wasn't just their city. The tremors echoed across the planet, then the system, then the occupied sectors beyond. Project Bastion wasn't just awake here. It was waking everywhere. Eli's display flickered as reports poured in. Mars, Epsilon, Bastion's defenses just activated. Proxima's doing the same. They're all coming online. Kara let out a breath. Holy hell, the entire damn galaxy's about to get a wake-up call. Dral stared at the holograms, his voice barely a whisper. You've turned your ruins into weapons. Marcus didn't answer. He didn't need to. The Citadel's central spire pulsed, and a deep, resonant voice echoed through the structure. Not human, not alien, but something older, something waiting. Architectural defense protocols, permanent. Welcome to the new Terran border. Dral collapsed to his knees, and across 100 worlds, human buildings began to fight back.